February 19th, 1980 is perhaps the most pivotal date in ACDC's history. It's the date that after which the band actually considered disbanding. It's one of two times that the band actually considered breaking up for good and not producing any more music, any more hard rock albums, because that night was the night that Bon Scott, their lead vocalist, succumbed to his own addictions and got wasted one night and passed out in the backseat of his car, of course lying on his back and choking on his own vomit. So this left ACDC in a very tight predicament. This left them, A, without their long-lost friend, and B, without a vocalist. So were they going to continue on, take the high road, and start making more music? Are they going to take a break? Are they going to go on a hiatus? Or are they just going to call it quits and just each go their own separate ways? That last option, the latter of these options, actually was the first thing that ACDC considered. Of course, they considered this briefly before actually going on to other possibilities, ultimately coming to the conclusion that Bon Scott would have wanted them to continue on their journey to hard rock success. So that, of course, left them with one choice: get a new vocalist and soldier on. Now, Angus Young and Malcolm Young, the two founding members of AC/DC, did not want a vocalist to sound exactly like Bon Scott. They wanted something totally different, off the other side of the spectrum, off the radar, under the radar, whatever. They wanted it to be completely different, just to kind of start over and turn over a new leaf, start a clean slate. This led them to pick Geordi's Brian Johnson. So the resulting album, Back in Black, is what we're going to take a look at today. This is, if not their best album ever to many fans. Of course, this isn't my favorite album, as you guys know. It's Powerage, that's my favorite album. But this is one of my favorite albums of the Brian Johnson era. It's my first AC/DC album I ever obtained, and I'll give it a solid 9.5 out of 10. Why am I giving the rating so soon in the review? Well, because I would rate this probably right under Highway to Hell and High Voltage. In my personal opinion, it doesn't reach the past success of AC/DC, but it's something different. It's definitely a step in a new direction, and it ushers in a new era, a new chapter in AC/DC's history because of the amazing vocals from Brian Johnson. Now, Brian Johnson still is a pretty decent singer, but he's definitely lost a lot of what made this album so charismatic, so heavy, so edgy. It's probably one of their most edgy albums in their discography. I mean, only beaten by For Those About to Rock, of course, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So, Back in Black is the first album since Highway to Hell in 1979, 1 year prior. So, I will automatically just give kudos to AC/DC for soldiering on and not even taking a break. These guys don't even rest at this point. It's yearly albums, snap, snap, snap at the snap of a finger, and here we go with another one with a different vocalist. Even after their vocalist had died, they come back the next year, even bigger, badder, and better than ever. So this is Back in Black. Let's take a look at it. It has some of your favorite songs on it. I guarantee if you are an AC/DC fan, you will know this album. You will know these songs: Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, What Do You Do for Money, Honey, Giving the Dog a Bone, Let Me Put My Love Into You, and of course the title track, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, Shake a Leg, and R&R, Rock and Roll, Ain't Noise Pollution, which is one of my favorite songs on this album because it kind of combines both of the Brian Johnson era and the Bon Scott era all into one song, because it's not too edgy, it's not too hard, it's not too fast like a lot of the other stuff on this album, but it's really kind of just ingrained into what made the Bon Scott era so great. Just kind of that, the repetitive rhythm, the rock and roll vibe, and not necessarily the over-the-top vocals that Brian Johnson is known for. He sings it more of in a relaxed pace. So it's just kind of one of those things that you can just kind of shake your head to, relax and just jam out to some good old rock and roll, I suppose. So basically, this is not my favorite AC/DC album, nor is Highway to Hell. Powerage is my favorite AC/DC album, but these two are probably, Highway to Hell and Back in Black, are probably what led them to the most success. So I do have a lot of respect for this album. Like I said, I give it a 9.5 out of 10. So let's get into what makes this album so great. The songs. It starts off with the bells of Hell's Bells. This song is very dark, and very mid-tempo, and has some really awesome high shrill vocals from Brian Johnson, the newcomer. So this is probably the best album for Brian Johnson's vocals. It's not the edgiest in AC/DC's catalog, but it definitely is the best for Brian Johnson as a whole. I've checked out his GRD stuff, and it doesn't even hold a candle to the stuff found on Back in Black. I mean, this employs and incorporates just the right amount of grit with the right amount of just pure singing, high-pitched vocals, I guess. He doesn't scream as much on this album, and he doesn't push himself and try too hard like he does on, say, Razor's Edge, Ball Breaker, and Stiff Upper Lip, but this is just the perfect thing for Brian Johnson. This is the perfect album. So it's a mix of everything. Hell's Bells is a very dark song. It's got very dark lyrics. It's very mid-tempo, as I said before. It's got a pretty awesome solo in there, and it's just a really great song altogether. Shoot to Thrill has a intro that kind of reminds me and is kind of reminiscent of Shot Down in Flames. I'm going to fix my camera here. Although with a different guitar tuning. It just sounds very similar to it. Not necessarily just exactly, but it's very similar. And then it gets on, it's more of a guitar-driven song, much like a lot of the stuff found on this album. Vocals are great, lyrics are great, and it's just an awesome song. There's even a part 3/4 through where everything just kind of calms down and gets really, really quiet, and you could just hear the drums banging like gunshots. It sounds really good. I really love it. The next song, What Do You Do for Money, Honey? This is probably my favorite, or one of my favorites, if not my very favorite song on this album. It's very energetic, it's very fast, it's very heavy, and just very edgy. And this is probably the best song for Brian Johnson's vocals. I absolutely love it. The next song is Giving the Dog a Bone, and I like this song, and then I don't like this song. This is one of those things where I used to not like this song as much, but then I started listening to it a bit more, you know, getting into the feel of it, getting into the lyrics, and I do in fact like the intro as well, just kind of the I don't know, it's just got a really catchy intro, and just a catchy structure overall. So the next one is Let Me Put My Love Into You. This is probably another one tied with What Do You Do for Money, Honey for Brian Johnson's vocals. Holy shit. I mean, this song and What Do You Do for Money, Honey just blew me out of the water vocal-wise. The only thing about this song that I really didn't like is the questionable content, or the questionable lyrical content, I should say. You guys can listen to it and find out. I mean, Let Me Put My Love Into You. I mean, it's very clever. All the lyrics on this album are very clever, but for this song, I didn't really like the lyrics that much. But other than that, the song as a whole, from everything, from the singing to the guitar tone to the structure, is just amazing. It's just grade A AC/DC at its finest. And then, of course, we come to the signature intro riff of Back in Black, which is another one of my favorite songs. This is probably one of their most popular songs played on the radio today, especially classic rock radio. I mean, I hear it practically every week when I listen to the radio, of course, which is almost never, but then again, when I do listen to the radio, I hear it a lot. So it's a really good song, really catchy, and it almost sounds like Brian Johnson is rapping, which has been a point of criticism over the years from many AC/DC fans, but, I mean, I see it, but it doesn't bother me, you know? I mean, it's just one of those things where you just kind of got to accept it, take it for what it is. It's a very good song, so don't find something to complain about it. Come on, guys. So the next one is You Shook Me All Night Long. Have a Drink on Me's next, but You Shook Me All Night Long, another one of those radio-friendly songs that's actually found on their later soundtrack album, Who Made Who. I almost lost my train of thought there. You Shook Me All Night Long. It's a very radio-friendly song. It could be found on, say, Highway to Hell or Powerage. I mean, it's very subtle, I suppose, very tranquil, very calming, but it's not necessarily relaxing. It's still, you know, hard rock, heavy, in your face kind of, but a little bit, you know, they take a little bit of a step back, I suppose, especially prevalent in the chorus, and it's just a really good song in general. So the next song is Have a Drink on Me. Like I said, I really like the intro. Trying to learn how to play it on guitar, but I just can't get that little intro down. Just those few, you know, guitar notes, I guess. I mean, it should be easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. It's just a really good song overall to listen to. The structure is very sound, and it's a very well-crafted song in general. The next song is Shake a Leg. This one is very inconsistent. I don't like it. I like parts of it. I like how Brian Johnson sings towards the middle part, but in the beginning, he sounds like he can't even hold a note. So this one is just probably the most inconsistent song in AC/DC's catalog. So it's not necessarily the fact that it's a bad song. I just personally don't like it. I could see how people would like it, but it's just one of those things where it sounds like they threw a bunch of riffs together to make it sound good, but it doesn't. So that's my only gripe with it. Other than that, I mean, it's okay in some parts, I guess. The next song is Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution, which I already described as being one of my favorite songs on this album. It's just one of those songs where it just takes you back to the good old days of AC/DC, where they used to just write very simplistic style riffs and just kind of take it back a little bit with rock and roll. I mean, just good old-fashioned rock and roll. None of this edgy bells and Back in Black and What Do You Do for Money, Honey? It's just one of those things where it's just like, let's get back to the good old, what rock and roll is all about. And that is exactly what this song does. And it's the perfect closer for a very good, grade A, awesome AC/DC album that means so much and is a tribute to Bon Scott's legacy. And it definitely does its job just that. It does it perfectly. So, like I said, I'm going to rate this album a 9.5 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed watching this review. Overall, I do like this album as much as, not more than, but as much as Highway to Hell, if not, maybe Highway to Hell a little bit more, but that's just because maybe I just have a bias towards Bon Scott. But then again, this is one of my favorite albums for the Brian Johnson era, although I might like For Those About to Rock a little bit better due to its edge. But we'll get into that the next time. This is Midnight Strike 3625. Keep calm and rock on.